And welcome to today's top story, something that's really interesting and has been in the news quite a bit for several months now, the refugees. Of course, we hear an awful lot about it through American media specifically when they refer to the caravan, you know, the latest being the caravan and their very strict policy. Joining us from the Sioux Community Career Center is Brenda Cooper. Brenda is a volunteer coordinator for volunteers. How are you, Brenda?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Now we want to talk about refugees here in Sault Ste. Marie. What, in your mind, what is your job with regards to them?
Well, I coordinate volunteers. What happens when a refugee family comes, we try to have a little core group of volunteers who will often meet them at the airport. We'll visit them. They're usually in a hotel for a week or two until they can arrange permanent housing. People who will transport them around for groceries or to medical appointments, and just become a little social support circle. My husband and I are with a family, and it's been 2 years, and it's become kind of like family. It's a lasting relationship, and a lot of our volunteers say that. So some people are very active in, volunteers are very active in, we collect gently used household goods and things like that to help them set up their homes, because they're coming with nothing, and they have a housing allowance, like a furniture allowance, but it doesn't really go very far. When you think of how many things you have in your house that it takes to live your daily life, it's a lot. So there's the gathering things, the welcoming, and then just kind of being that social circle. And what I'm happy to see is that the social circle spread, because my family has now met my children, and my grandchildren, and some of the families have really expanded it to their friends and their relatives as well. And one of the other things that we try to set up several times a year is what's called a gathering of friends, where we have a church hall that we can use, and we bring together the families, their volunteers, and anybody from the community that's interested in meeting them. And those are it's just to create the biggest social group that we can for the newcomers, so to help them fit in. The volunteers' role is to teach them how to live independently in our society, and it's very, very different. The language is a real barrier in the beginning. The families all go, the children go to school, of course, the adults go for English as a second language lessons, and we have some of our volunteers who will go into the homes as tutors just to kind of supplement that and to encourage more English conversation. The idea behind in the program from the federal government is that in 1 year they will learn enough English to be able to be employed, and that's not strictly true, because it's hard to be fluent.
How do you feel about that?
It's very difficult to be fluent in another language in a year, particularly if you are coming from one of the Middle Eastern countries where Arabic is your first language, because you have a different alphabet. I have seen my name written in Arabic many times, and I couldn't pick it out of
Really?
anything. Yes, it's really difficult. But they do learn, and what we're finding is the ones that are into their second year are starting to get jobs and to be employed, and it's gradually happening. It doesn't happen on a really strict timetable.
Right,
it takes time, and everybody's different. Some people become independent very quickly, and some it takes a little longer, and a lot of it depends on what they've been through. And,
I was going to say, depending where they come from.
And where they come from.
The refugees who have settled in Sault Ste. Marie, where are they from generally?
The majority of them so far have been Syrian. We've had people from different countries in Africa. We've had a family from Myanmar, and other Middle Eastern countries as well. There have been, there's right now 28 families living in the Sioux. There's been more than that came. We had about 200 people come in, and some of them have left. About 50 left to go to communities where they had friends or family where it was going to be easier to settle. But the 28 families that we have are pretty much settled here. And I know there's a perception that there's a lot of people, that's a lot of people, but 28 families in a city this size is not that huge. And it's just, I think it's a benefit. I think the Sioux is becoming much more multicultural, and I happen to think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, you know what? What a great opportunity for education.
Yes.
I mean, just to sit down and ask questions of. You know, we have no idea. You and I were chatting before we went to air, and you were talking about how a lot of them show here, and they have nothing, like nothing.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to even imagine getting a house
many
set
of the
up.
families who have come from refugee camps in Africa come with very little because they were living you've seen pictures,
Yes.
I'm sure, in the media of the big camps, so they don't have a lot. And that's one of the things that why our volunteers are important, or to help them with things. We always have people offering us clothing, and I do want to say that we can't accept clothing unless we have a person of a specific size and we know we need a garment, because we have no storage space for it. That's
okay.
our whole problem with
Okay.
all of the household goods and things that we collect. We're pretty much limited to things that people can hold for us till the day that we need them. And we have been searching high and low for some free storage space that's dry and safe, rodent-free and good to put our stuff in. But we're managing. It's just
It's a timing
challenge.
thing.
It's a challenge. So I've had a lot of people contacting me about clothes, and what I just say is, tell me what you have, give me your phone number, your email, and I'll get back to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you ask around
Yeah.
the refugee community
Yeah.
to see, you know, who
What they
needs
need,
what.
yeah.
And I'm sure they must appreciate everything they get.
I think they do. I think they appreciate the kindness of the people. They are very grateful to Canada for having welcomed them, and I would say yes, they are.
You know, it's interesting because we need to, in my mind, we need to accept neighbors. You know, and we have so much in this country. It's such a good opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, for us to all learn about different ethnicities and different ways of life, to remind us how well we have it here.
One of our volunteers said to me, I was just asking some of the volunteers to kind of share their experiences with me, and one of them said, I feel that being born in Canada was like winning the lottery. And it's why he volunteers, because he feels like he would like to give back for all the things that he received. And
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Another
Sure.
another volunteer said that what her family taught her was that people who have nothing can still be very happy. If their family, if the family is all together, then they are very happy and they are rich.
And you said too, just before we started, that we don't realize how well we are here as far as human rights go.
Yes, a lot of the families, excuse me, a lot of the families who have come were in countries, I'm thinking of Syrians particularly, if they went to a country like Lebanon as their country of refuge, they had no human rights there. They weren't citizens. Often the children weren't allowed to go to school. They just didn't have human rights. They weren't particularly wanted. I think that often they were discriminated against in being charged higher rents and things like that. It's been very difficult, and I think that that's one of the things that they're very grateful about when they come to Canada. I had one fellow tell me that the best thing about Canada was that he had human rights again. So that's pretty wonderful.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now, with regards to somebody who's watching this morning and they want to get involved, they want to help. We hear of refugee families who come to, you know, Ontario, to Canada, and they're sponsored. So what does that mean, and how can we help as a community to go beyond that?
Okay, well, the sponsoring, the refugees who come through the Sioux Community Career Centre are sponsored by the government. They're called
okay.
government-assisted refugees. Then there's another group that are called BVOR families, and I can't remember what the acronym is, but they are sponsored half by the government and half by private groups, community groups or churches. And we
yes.
have some of those here. If someone is wanting to get involved, they can contact me. If you go onto the Sioux Community Career Centre website,
Okay.
and go to there's a page called Newcomers, and there's a little email box that if you fill that out, it comes to me, and I could contact you to see what you wanted to do.
Terrific. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming by. So at this point, do you need materials, or do you need people more?
Okay, we need some volunteers. We have several families that are coming before the end of the year. So we need volunteers. I just had a volunteer session the other night and got some very enthusiastic people. I'd like to have a few more. We need couches and dressers and towels and new pillows.
All kinds
We
of things.
also really could use storage space. If there's anybody out there who has an empty place that's dry, that we could store things, ideally it would be big enough that we could also do up packages. We have a lot of dishes and kitchenware. It would be nice to spread them out and do up family packages, but any kind of storage space,
Wouldn't it be
please let
great
us
if one
know.
of the locker storage facilities donated a couple
We
of...
do.
Yeah? Really?
We have, yes.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah, we have 2 units at Russio's, and they're full. They are
terrific.
full.
Good, good. So awesome. So if you're interested in either becoming a volunteer with your time or donating anything, call Brenda. Get a hold of Brenda through the website at Sioux Community Career Center and go to newcomers. And this is Brenda Cooper. Brenda, it's so good of you to stop in. Continued good work.
Well, thank you for having me.
We'll be back right after this.